It's showtime. Is it showtime? Okay, yeah.
So, when you guys want to share this?
They went somewhere.
They're on, they went away for their.
We'll start at something.
I don't want you to feel like I'm monopolizing all this fun.
I try to stay
Well,
out of people's
I mean,
business.
it's not other people. You being one of those people.
Do you guys want to get going? What do you think?
If you want to start out.
Are you on the clock, man? Because if you are, we need to get started.
Yes, yes.
Right.
There.
All right, woo. Okay, good. Hey, oyez, oyez.
Unless you're giving away your.
That was very official, wow.
Hey, this is good.
I like that.
We're here for the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting, and we're hereby called to order. Would you call the roll?
Oh, would indeed. Jacobs,
Here?
Pilata,
Here.
Zelms,
Here.
Zoff.
Yes.
Also present is Planning and Zoning Administrator Julie Swinger and Village Solicitor Chris Connor.
Okay. Review the agenda. Does the agenda look all right to everybody? Yeah?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, that's good. And are there any communications
There are
beyond
no-
what we have in our packet?
There are none. If, Denise has pointed out something important, if you wish today to nominate a chair, you can then vote on that in your next meeting, which should fall around, October or so, and then that'll take care of it for the year. But you might want to get that nomination out there tonight because you meet so infrequently.
Why don't we do
That
that,
can
you
happen
guys? Is
after
that
the
all right? We'll do it
public
after the public hearing. That way
Perfect.
These lovely people don't have to
Agreed.
Yeah.
stand through what will be a bloody nomination battle. With everybody running towards the door. Okay, so review the minutes. If people who were at the last meeting had a chance to look at the last meeting's minutes, being the sole representative. No, Richard, you
No,
were
I was
there.
here.
How'd you feel about it, Richard? Any changes? Okay, so is there a motion we accept them?
If you can
I so move.
if you can move to adopt, then everyone can vote and we'll have a quorum.
Okay. Move to adopt.
I move to adopt the minutes as presented.
Okay, I'll second. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Any opposed? No? Okay, great. So, we are at the meat of the meeting here, the public hearing on this variance, and typically we start with a report from staff,
Okay,
who is gonna make all of this perfectly clear.
here, okay. So we have Judith Hempfling, property owner, and at 225 West Limestone Street, and Carl Manieri, property owner of 343 South Stafford Street. They have collaborated together to try to resolve an issue where they have it's a non-conforming structure that is crossing 5 feet into Ms. Hempfling's property. So it doesn't meet the setback for Mr. Manieri's property, and it's encroaching 5 feet into the setback of Ms. Hempfling's property. These are two legal lots zoned residential B. I wasn't sure that we could do this, had originally said that's probably not going to be able to happen. Went back and talked with the village manager and then our solicitor to see if there was a different way to look at this, and we determined that we are taking two nonconformities and basically bringing it down to one nonconformity. That would change Ms. Hempfling's lot size and width, but there is a clause in the zoning code that doesn't prevent a nonconforming lot from being built on as long as the setbacks are met and the lot coverage requirements. So that's where we're at. And in the end, if they do this replat, he will have his property, his house will be 5 feet setback from the property line, and Ms. Hempfling will have a lot that doesn't have any structure on it.
If I could clarify one point, that the issue really fundamentally is this, that Mr. Manieri's home crosses the Hempfling property line, is that correct? And so the replat will then allow the property lines to reflect the actual properties, and then they can be transferred and sold, because there's no way you could ever get a loan and sell a property if you've got this boundary dispute.
May I paraphrase it and say that although the two property owners are solving a problem that one of the property owners has, our primary responsibility is to grant a variance that allows for a substandard lot to be, can still be a building lot.
I think that's fair, yeah. But the reality,
Yeah.
you're
No, I
correct as the body, the practical reality is this, and we've got to, and it's what the BZA needs to
So
do.
we're,
yeah.
we're granting a variance.
Yes.
We're not approving a,
No, that's a private transaction that ultimately will culminate one way or another. But the future of what needs to be done to facilitate the private citizens to be able to manage their property in the way
no.
that one wants to do it.
I'll say, in fact, Judith could sell to Carl and not be able to build on the lot and solve the problem and not come here. It's her desire to be able to maintain that lot as a building lot is the reason that we're here.
And she can answer that if she wants. She wants to address it.
Yes, in theory, but it wouldn't solve the problem in the future. You'd have to have one owner on both lots. Otherwise, you'd always have a reoccurring potential for an issue.
No, okay, I guess what I'm saying is Judith could combine her two lots and sell 10 feet off, and still everything would be just fine. It's maintaining a building lot.
You'd
Well,
still have to replat. You still have to replat to reflect the
Yeah,
new
no,
property
the replat
line.
has to happen
Yeah.
to benefit Carl.
Okay.
Yeah. That was an option that was explored.
Well, before we hear from the public, well, actually, the applicant and the public, are there any other questions for either Denise or Chris?
No, sir. So you still got a 40-foot buildable lot? I mean, you're gonna make it a B, you're gonna go from a
Well,
B
it'll
to
still
a
be
C
an
or
RV, but it's gonna
But
be
you're
a
gonna be-
40-foot buildable lot.
as an exception?
Mm-hmm.
Not
And I
for
think,
us to
you know, and I
determine,
think, that what Richard said, I mean, it has merit that, what she could do is fold the one lot into her other lot, but with our desire as a community to, as part of our visioning and our comprehensive plan to have more infill, we would lose a buildable lot.
Right.
So
So we're cleaning this up, basically.
we're
Yes.
cleaning it up, but you still having the ability to have a lot that a house could be built on.
Okay.
Any other questions? Do the applicants want to say anything? I don't think you have to, but you're welcome to if you'd like.
No, I just wanted to make sure it would still be buildable, because otherwise I'd lose a lot of value. I sold Carl 10 feet, and I had a 40-foot lot that I could not, sell as a buildable lot. I would lose a lot of value.
Carl, did you want to add anything?
No, I just think, very helpful that she does have a buildable lot. I like that idea.
All right, so let's.
I have one question.
Yeah, sure.
If one lot becomes 40 and the other becomes 60, which I'm understanding, everybody says it's a buildable lot. Well, the builder or you have to come back and get another variance?
No.
This would be good.
This is the variance.
No, it's.
But it's to build on the lot.
No, they could come and, a person could buy the property, could come and build a single-family home and provide a site plan, as long as they meet the setbacks and the lot
Okay,
coverage
okay.
requirements, they're fine. Yeah.
Richard, do you have any more questions?
But the only one I want to make sure that we're not just doing round numbers. The house encroaches 5 feet, so 10 feet is the minimum that could be sold to make Carl's legal lot. Because I know that when we do variances, we always want to do the minimum that we need to accommodate the situation. And it is 10.
Yeah, to do it the other way, then to me, and to legal, then all we're doing is really just benefiting a person individually rather than actually cleaning up a nonconformity. Because then we'd still have two nonconformities if we just sold off 5 feet.
Right.
if we just allow the line to move 5 feet. Yeah.
Okay, there being no members of the public who want to speak, and if we don't have any further questions, we
Answer
can
no mine.
proceed to making a decision on
You still have to open the
Yeah, you do have to open the public hearing. Sorry.
The public hearing is hereby open. It's now closed. Okay, so Denise was nice enough to provide this little cheat sheet for you. This is basically a restatement of our code as it relates to variances. And so we are required, and Judy's gonna lead us through this because she does it so well. We're required to actually vote on each one of these items, like yay or nay. And then at the end of all that, you'll be asked to vote on whether you want to vote in favor of the variance or not. And strangely enough, it's not like there's no added up score to determine whether you're voting for the variance or not. This is just sort of how you feel about each of these. At the end of the day, your vote on the variance is your vote on the variance. Does that make sense?
Perfect.
So you're not, if you vote on 3 of them one way and 4 of them another way, you don't have to then follow through on the variance thing to vote that way. It just creates a suitable record. If somebody wanted to appeal it, then they would understand the thinking of this board in voting for the variance or not, and they might then choose to point out that it doesn't make any sense or something, right? Okay. Judy?
Indeed, so you want to wait until after we've read through the variance standards to make a motion?
Does somebody want to make a motion that we grant the variance requested?
I move that we grant the variance as requested.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Alrighty.
Okay, and so off we go down the variance standards. The first is whether the property in question will yield a reasonable return, or whether there can be any beneficial use of the property without the variance.
It's or, so how do you vote?
You just got to vote, Richard. We don't get to rewrite the code.
Okay, but what am I saying if I say yes?
It doesn't contemplate what the requester is asking the board. The board needs to know what they are being asked. So what you are being asked, and what you understand from this, is that you have an individual who cannot sell their property unless the variance is granted. That is the way I would interpret it as well. We have someone who wants to engage in the sale of property. We have another property owner who wishes to then be able to yield a reasonable return if she would like to sell in the future, or she would like to build on that lot. So in fact, you are contemplating both.
So do you want to call the roll for this, for number 1?
I still don't understand.
And some of these defy understanding a little bit, and folks just sort of jump in as best they can.
Since we have counsel here, we could ask Chris for a learned interpretation.
Well, the problem is I'd have to pull up the whole code, because this is, I'd want to see the whole code in context, but these are the standards, and then you simply take each question one at a time. So in this case, you take the circumstances before you, the request of the applicant, whether the property in question will yield a reasonable return, or whether there can be any beneficial use of the property without the variance. Well, I mean, one could argue in that case, there could be a beneficial use of the property even if it were vacant. And you weigh that, so you could, is each of you voting individually? It could be, I think that there's greater value if we allow the variance, but if we don't allow the variance, there still may be some value to the property, although I don't know what it would be.
The same
mean-
value it's always had.
Well, but it depends. I mean, but see, you were applying the standards, and the standards are, there is a level of subjectivity because you're each board members who have the power to vote and weigh that standard. And so one could argue that, given the fact that this is a residential area, that the purpose of a residential area is to have residences, and the fact that there's a nonconformity, and that there's a desire of the village to have residents built because you want more citizens and affordable housing and whatever those standards are, that you can vote, say yes, that makes sense. Again, as Judy says, it's not every standard carries the same weight in every given analysis.
Right. And oftentimes, there are cases where the property still has value without the variance, and the BZA will say yes to some things and no. I mean, it'll, as you go through those questions,
I just
Sometimes it'll
can't
be
tell if I say yes, what it means, or if I say no, what it
It
means.
means the property in question, if you say it will yield a reasonable return, that's part of the question. The other part of the question, if you say yes, can there be any beneficial use of the property without the variance?
So it's either or?
I don't see it as either or. It's,
Whatever you can sleep with.
All right.
I honestly,
Well,
it,
let me say this, that I'm going to get a more complicated legal answer. Because every fact pattern is different. And as Alice will attest in his other life, that facts matter when analyzing a situation. Under the Constitution, there is a legal theory where the refusal of the public entity to allow use of land could be considered a constitutional taking under the Fifth Amendment and the Ohio Amendment, Ohio Constitution. So let me give you an example. Let's say that if there could be an argument made that if a property that could be built upon, the public entity said no, we won't allow it. And you can see it. I mean, there was an article in the paper today, that builders upset somewhere in Clear Creek Township because they were denied the ability to do a 60-unit residential development. Their argument would be that it's a taking because I can't develop this to the highest and best use, or I can't develop it at all. So in this case, that could be a relevant factor if this variance were denied, because one of the applicants would be left with a lot that you say it's non-conforming and therefore I could never build anything on it. Has that impacted the potential property value of that unit? The answer could be yes under those circumstances.
What I'm trying to say is, the first part of that, I would say yes to, and the second part, I would say no to. I don't understand how I can.
you can also
All right, so
abstain.
okay, so it's not important, is what
Well, I
everybody's
mean-
saying.
Or
The
you
Supreme Court
could
says
conclude
you
it's
have to
not
answer this
applicable.
question.
Yes.
I mean, you can also
Yeah,
conclude it's not
applicable.
applicable to this
Yeah.
request.
it doesn't fit in this situation.
If you believe that it is not applicable, then that's a third alternative rather than yes or no.
And you could also abstain. We've had people who simply can't get their head around
Well,
it, and they abstain.
okay, let's go.
All right, go ahead.
Salmonson,
Yes.
Zoff,
No.
Pallotta,
Yes.
Jacobs.
No.
All right, the next question is whether the variance is substantial. Zoff,
Yes.
Salmonson,
No.
Pallotta,
Yes.
Jacobs.
No.
The third question, whether the essential character of the neighborhood would be substantially altered, or whether adjoining properties would suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance. Pallotta,
No.
Salmonson,
No.
Zoff,
No.
Jacobs.
No.
And we agree.
Whether the variance would,
Let's stop there. We're doing, that one went very well.
it really did. Can you everyone just take a moment and pat yourself on the back on that, okay? Fourth, whether the variance would adversely affect the delivery of governmental services such as water distribution, sanitary sewer collection, electric distribution, stormwater collection, or refuse collection. Pallotta,
No.
Jacobs,
No.
Salmonson,
No.
Zoff.
No.
Whether the property owner purchased the property with knowledge of the zoning restriction. Salmonson,
Abstain. I have no idea.
Zoff,
Yes.
Pallotta,
Yes.
Jacobs.
It sounds like this is something that came up, so I'm gonna say no.
All right. 6, whether the property owner's predicament feasibly can be obviated through some method other than a variance. Jacobs.
No.
Salmonson,
No.
Zoff,
No.
Pallotta.
No.
whether the existing conditions from which a variance is being sought were self-created. Zoff,
No.
Salmonson,
A second. Yes.
Pilata,
Yes.
Jacobs. All right, and finally, whether the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed and substantial justice done by granting the variance. Jacobs,
Yes.
Pilata,
Yes.
Salmonson,
Yes.
Zoff.
Yes.
And now I think we want to ask for people's vote on whether or not to grant the variance as a motion.
All right, so this is to grant the variance as requested. Pilata,
Yes.
Salmonson,
Yes.
Zoff,
Yes.
Jacobs.
I think we break these questions, didn't
These questions are more
we?
difficult.
I understand how they built the building before they knew it, or the.
Okay,
Yeah.
so then that variance will be granted.
When I read these, I was gonna ask, did you build, did you know you built on the property?
So,
Did you buy
that's,
it?
yeah, I don't
That's
have
all
any
that.
more on that, yeah.
Nomination?
What?
Nomination?
Yes.
Yeah, so let's deal with this question of, we're gonna need a chair for the next time we get together, and for the next 6 years.
And there are two people.
Now,
that
here
are
you
here.
are.
Very devious.
So,
I would like to nominate Alice.
well,
Oh, we're not there yet?
well, hang on just a second here. Let's-
Oh, don't try to duck out now.
yeah, yeah,
yeah, let me do
There's a
my-
nomination on the floor,
Well,
pretty sure.
do you all know who the other two members of the Board of Zoning Appeals are?
Who are they gonna be? That's a good
There,
question.
Matt Reed is still on the Board of Zoning Appeals. Scott Osterholm will join the Board of Appeals after May 1st. And Steve Kahn is coming off.
So,
So those present, and then you've got,
So the
Dan
only,
Rise is an
only
alternate.
two
and the only
people that have been on the Board of Zoning Appeals
are Reed and Jacobs. You are correct.
will be you and Matt.
I'm taken.
Is Matt the kind of person that might be vaguely interested in the
He would-
chair, you know?
You could nominate Matt
But he's
as the
really his
counter to
schedules.
Mr. Salmonson's nomination, and then you'd have two on the floor for the next,
Retaliating.
for the next,
Retaliating against the guy who's not here.
then you'd have two on the floor for the next, to vote on.
He-
You know, if you're really opposed to your own
Does
nomination.
anybody here want to do it?
You do.
Well, I'm willing to do it until the next meeting for sure, and then if the other guy wants to do it, can we do that? Is there a term?
You need to nominate someone to be the chair, and then that person is the chair for a year, and then you do it all over again.
Except,
You have the most seniority, though, I will say.
Well, does the year end December 31, 2019?
Yeah.
oh, okay.
So look, you
Calendar.
We're talking about maybe you might have one more meeting.
Yeah.
I mean,
If
it's.
nobody else wants to do it, I would
I'll
accept the
second.
nomination.
Lot of second.
Right. All in favor?
No, you can't vote on
Oh, no
it. This
vote
is,
yet.
this is the hilarious part. You can't vote on it till the next meeting, at which you will have to chair because
So.
we won't have voted yet.
All
You
right,
There
guys
is
have
no
to do a
meeting, then
replat now that
Yeah.
has a 10-foot.
very good.
So, it waits until your next
Yeah, he's
meeting.
gonna-
It just
he's gonna make
sits.
one
so
more.
that goes on our agenda planning, we'll be
Yeah.
voting for chair.
Yes.
So anything else for agenda planning?
Have your survey.
Anything else for agenda planning?
I have nothing. Don't believe Denise has anything.
Okay, motion to adjourn?
See you guys, thanks.
Fantastic.
I make the motion to adjourn.
Okay, second? All in favor?
Aye.
It's kind of funny that
No
the
opposed?
Duncan,
All right.
because so they understood where this came from, that these are not our questions, these came from the Duncan ruling. It was Duncan versus.
I feel like y'all
It was good
are
and clean.
just lucky there's no remote.
I didn't think they were.
Yeah.